Welcome back to the Chase MedSearch podcast. I am delighted to have two very good friends of mine on today, Neil Dougherty, Dan Rogers. These are guys I've known for years. I've had the honor of placing Neil twice in his career and Dan once in his career, where they went to Vertiflex Spine and were part of absolutely changing the face of the SI industry, and many other things happened that were incredible, including these guys getting promoted very rapidly. They have continued to have just absolutely stellar careers. These guys are on social media. You see them on LinkedIn. They are continuing to make a massive difference in the medical device industry. Neil was recently promoted to Chief Strategy Officer for Spinal Simplicity. Dan is now Chief Revenue Officer for Spinal Simplicity. We're going to talk about those promotions and their careers, but welcome, Neil, and Dan, welcome for the first time.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
It's good to be asked to join for the first time, Jordan. Really appreciate it, man.
Well, it's great to have you guys on, and this is our first video cast, so you guys get to break a new barrier, which you guys are always doing, it seems like. Why don't we take a step back real quick in your career, just sketch out for us, how you first ever heard of medical devices and then began to think about it as a career. I always love to include that because we get that question all the time.
Oh, age before beauty. Okay, I like that. Well, honestly, there's always been the appeal of medical devices and medical sales. We were hearing that even when I was on the college campus, and I was lucky enough to have two gentlemen from Stryker Communications actually come see one of my basketball games. And I, me, I ask a lot of questions. I'm not shy at all, just asking them what they do. So, and I know last time I was on the podcast, you asked me a question about if I had any advice for someone in that position trying to break into medical sales. My advice, just looking back at that time period, is just be willing to do anything, right? And so I spent maybe the next couple of years of my life kind of wedging myself behind walls, crawling through ceiling spaces, wiring up these integrated operating room suites for Stryker Communications. And then if you can picture for a second, just, with these cameras being wired up and having like a big screen TV in front of you, and with like maybe 18 ORs. I'll set the scene. This was like Greenville, South Carolina. Seeing all these ORs, I looked in there and I was like, what is that? And I had one of the nurses said, that's a spinal cord stimulator. That's a spinal cord stimulation case going on right there. And I was like, that
seems pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Also kind of like Frankenstein. What are we doing? Right. And so that was like my first kind of peek into pain management, really. Mm-hmm. From there, I pursued that, got a job with Rhonda Kirby in the Fort Worth team with Medtronic. That's where we first met, Jordan. So thank you there. And then after Medtronic, you tapped me again for. You said, Neil, it's the voice that Jordan has when you know he's onto something.
The guy sounds like he's 10 feet tall.
So Neil, this is the one. I was like, and it was. You weren't wrong. Mm-hmm. Vertiflex was a great team, great campaign, purchased by Boston Scientific. I got to spend some good time with my man Dan here over there, figuring out the world. And then right during that COVID lockdown, that first COVID lockdown, we researched Spinal Simplicity, ran into the CEO, Todd Mosley, and I knew that this was going to be home for at least some time.
That's great. That's great. Dan?
Man, as always, Neil's a tough act to follow. But a lot of similar themes in my story. Number one being the best of abilities, availability. But early on in college, I played football, and I was fortunate to have a really strong network and some really great mentors. So in school, the best program at Illinois Wesleyan University was accounting. So naturally, you want to being a motivated person, you want to be involved in the best program that the school has to offer. So I was on the fast track to becoming an accountant. And then the second semester of my junior year, spent the whole semester just working for a public accounting firm. And I found out pretty quickly that was absolutely something I did not want to do. So it was like completely back to the drawing board. I love the concepts of accounting and business analytics, but being an auditor, if you want to read up on it, it's not very fun work, at least for me. So having great mentors at the time, my coaches, I just sought counsel in them and what should I do? They had some contacts in the medical device industry, and they hooked me up with them. Interestingly enough, the first person I spoke with was a distributor rep for NuVasive. I did not get that job, but that individual, his name's Craig Matheson, gave me some really sage advice on breaking into the medical device industry. Go get some sales experience under your belt, and be willing to brag about yourself in an interview. That's what it's for. That was a big learning moment for me. You want to be humble, but be able to assert the accomplishments that you have.
Absolutely.
So sold business to business for a couple of years, and a small company called Neurotherm came along. A recruiter by the name of Harry Newberry hooked me up with them, and selling RF supplies, generators, and kyphoplasty products. About a year into that, Neurotherm was acquired by St. Jude Medical. Yeah. And, I was still early in my career in general, let alone my device career. So just made myself available to the team, made sure that I was able to answer any questions that they had. And I was fortunate enough to be kept on to train the Midwest sales force for St. Jude Medical on Neurotherm. Was able to meet some really incredible people, learn from some more people, and really start to grow my network. Once the integration was complete there, St. Jude Medical kept me on and just gave me an expansion territory in the Chicago suburbs. Was there for a couple of 2-3 years. And that's when I was fortunate enough to cross paths with the one and only Jordan Chase. Man, I'll never forget that. Jordan, you called me up. I was on vacation with some friends out in California, and you said, Dan, this one's pretty hot. The VP of sales needs to meet with somebody in Little Rock, Arkansas this week, actually in 2 days. So went to the Nordstrom rack, got a suit, showed up, interviewed with Shane Johnson.
Yeah.
And man, Shane and I hit it off right away. And then was fortunate enough to get the job, be at the part of the commercial launch of the Vertiflex device. Obviously, people have talked about that. We were able to grow that up, really open up the minds of the interventional pain physicians to the minimally invasive spine market, and kind of think about the pathologies that they're treating as opposed to just treating the neuropathic conditions. And then from there, we integrated into Boston Scientific. That was a great experience, learned from some really great professionals there. And then spent some time getting initiated into the SI world as the vice president of sales at Omnia Medical. The posterior SI market, as many people who are in tune with the industry are aware, has gone through some reimbursement ebbs and flows, but there was invaluable knowledge gained there from a coding and reimbursement standpoint. And all along the while, I had my good buddy and guardian angel, Neil Dougherty, looking out for me. And he said the Spinal Simplicity was looking to develop theirs. I think it was late 2023. Came out to see Todd Mosley, and I was hooked the second I saw that product. It's really been a pleasure to come to Spinal Simplicity, launch the SI line, expand the brand into an entirely different product or larger product portfolio. And because of the success that we've had with that, because of the field team's embrace of growth and change, I've been fortunate enough to get promoted into the Chief Revenue Officer spot here. So, I can't overstate how important it is to network and keep yourself around good people. I'm sitting with two of them here on this podcast.
Keep Jordan on speed dial.
Yeah. And always be willing to, if you want to go up, the answer's always got to be yes. You got to be willing to do what it takes, go anywhere when you're needed, and just go out and do the work.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. It's been so fun to watch the trajectory of your guys' career and just to see what you guys were doing and have been doing and are doing right now. Spinal Simplicity just continues to bring the heat with innovation, and I see news articles on it. You guys recently got promoted, made a big splash on LinkedIn. Can you tell us about what you were doing and now what your jobs are now and how that's different?
Take it away.
Oh, goodness. Well, in the beginning of, in the infancy of Spinal Simplicity and commercialization, you're wearing a lot of hats, right? And there's a lot of whiteboard, a lot of strategy.
Yeah. You guys should see the whiteboards in this room right now. They're full.
Yeah. And honestly, Jordan, you know me, even how we talk hoops sometimes when we pick up the phone, you know me, I love that part, the building, the strategy. And so you could say the past year or two, I've actually been a little further away from what I like to do while managing this big growth of Minuteman. And while Dan was getting our SI part of our business off the ground. So it's been kind of people will say, oh, this is a dynamic duo. I'm like, well, Dan's kind of been doing his own thing. We've kind of been holding down different forts here, but this is a chance, I think, and an amazing opportunity for me to get back into what I like to do with building strategy and getting out in front of the company to progress us in areas of new advantages and new innovation. You've been following Todd Mosley for quite some time. You know his personality and that company. It's the company brand. We're going to continue to innovate and try to be out ahead with unique, patented, protected techniques and technology. So, being kind of the new toy guy myself, I want to be right.
That's
there.
Exciting.
Yeah,
it's just to be at the forefront of all of the new things that Spinal Simplicity is going to be rolling out. We couldn't have a better person being the face of the organization and leading the way of innovation than Neil. So lucky to be part of it. I was brought over here to launch the SI line back at the end of 2023. We got the FDA approval for the Liberty device in December, and Todd Mosley moves fast, man. We were doing cases almost immediately. So it was a little bit of a chaotic environment, making sure that we were getting the surgical technique down perfectly, that we were getting the marketing messaging right, that the coding was well understood, and that everybody was pulling in the same direction. But man, everybody worked really hard. It came together. And the launch of the Liberty device was a great success for us, continues to grow quite a bit month over month. And then we also got approval for the Patriot device for hybrid use with the Liberty. And we're working on standalone use for that right now. And now I'm transitioning, like Neil was mostly working on the Minuteman side of the business. I was mostly on the SI. Now I'm stepping into a role where I'm leading the sales organization, as well as some of the reimbursement side. The SI world is still a little bit convoluted with respect to reimbursement, and there's lots of changes and curveballs that come seemingly like every 3 months. So part of my job is to be making sense of all that for our people, for the physicians that we work with, to make sure that we're doing everything according to the proper coding, making sure our physicians are getting reimbursed for their services and their patients are benefiting.
That's great. And I want to talk about culture in a minute, but one of the things that just, given what I do, that I notice is that you guys are willing to take hiring, not risks, but calculated decisions around people that are pretty early in their career and give them some pretty big jobs. And I'd love to have you guys just kind of unwind that for us a little bit for the audience about how do you spot that kind of talent so early in their career, know that they're ready to do it, and give them the reins. It's exciting to see.
Yeah,
You go for this one.
I'll take that because I'm passionate about it, Jordan. Because you caught me relatively early in my career, and it really changed the trajectory of things. And really, what you look for, I hope this lands with people and they understand what I'm saying. I call it the need to, meaning some people want to do something. Some people have an innate burning need to accomplish things, whether that be learning something new, going out and making a sale, just putting in the hours to master a trade. That's what we look for and what we try to tease out in the interview process. There is an incredible amount of young talent out there. And recently, there's an incredible amount of talent generally with some of the strategic acquisitions that have happened in the market. But we like to think that we can curate information very effectively so that we can teach anybody anything that they need to know. The biggest barrier is their willingness and their need and their ability to take that information, absorb it, and run with it. So it's really about figuring out what the makeup of the individual is and how much passion and desire they have for their own growth.
That's fantastic. Neil, you got anything to throw in there?
Yeah, I think there truly is great balance in what we're doing from the recruiting standpoint, and then you specifically, Dan, recently. But to your point about being able to identify or take a risk in integrating that into the sales force or the field team, what it looks like when we talk about it is it looks a lot like yourself. It looks like a lot like us, not too many moons ago, right? And someone took a chance on us. You mentioned Shane. Shout out to Shane Johnson and Todd Woodson, Mike Lindsay, Earl Fender.
They knew how to spot it.
They knew how to spot it.
There was a theme there too, because they promoted you guys pretty rapidly too. X, I know, got you guys into management seats earlier in your career. As someone that got in 1998, I mean, you guys know the history to some extent, but I mean, it took decades to get into some of the jobs that you guys have held, and it's just tremendous to see the change. It's very exciting.
It's a classic example of preparation meeting opportunity, and having really solid mentors put the trust in you to take the opportunity and run with it. Michael Enzing and Earl Fender certainly did that for us. And just, I want to make sure that I'm not getting blinded by, that bias of experience, that there's other people out there that people are resilient. They can figure things out on their own, but you need to trust them to do so. And if you're able to establish that culture, that's where something real special and true scale comes from.
Not everybody knows the story of Spinal Simplicity. Can you kind of sketch it out for us a little bit and kind of where you...
Nobody better than, other than maybe Todd Mosley.
You got a storyteller here?
Better than him.
No, Todd Mosley probably needs a chance to tell that story with you, Jordan, one day. I can try to pick it up when I came here. That's probably going to be the most germane to our space in this interventional pain and spine space, because that's when we commercialized really in 2020 with the decision to incorporate a lot of the interventional pain physicians and partners there. But they've been around for years, right? We got our first CE mark in 2011.
CE mark, yep.
Yeah, and then you started your studies. You got FDA approval in 2015, and you look back at this technology. When I saw it for the first time, I'm talking about Minuteman here. When I saw it for the first time, I was like, "Wow, that is what we've been looking for, even when we were looking at Vertiflex." Mm-hmm. And so, what Dan was talking about, what your network is, and then you go into all the strategy of how you market and who you need to get in front of. It's all very important, because this could have, it could have been a really big competitor while we were on that Vertiflex front.
Mm-hmm.
It could have, caused a lot of issues there.
Fortunately, we were able to get ahead of the curve. But yeah.
And so that's, I think that's what I wanted people to know in 2020. When you're in that spot, though, and you make that decision to leave this newly acquired Vertiflex team, and you come over here, and you're like, you know that people aren't going to see everything the way you see it, and you got to be a little bit tough, and wrap your arms around the folks that are progressive, and then and be patient with some of the people that are going to come around in 2020 and 2022 and 2024 and beyond. But it's just so exciting, but also just like you almost get emotional. But like it's been a heavy lift, Jordan. But once people get here, because we're in the office,
people walking by,
patent wall behind.
Yeah, it's. I tell people all the time there are startups, and then there's Spinal Simplicity. Yeah. It's in a class of was it 151 patents?
151 now, and 34 pending.
Yeah, before we started, I asked Dan if those were his sales awards on the wall behind you.
This is what that would look like.
I was pretty good at sales. I don't know if I was that good.
But seriously, did you say 151 patents? Is that what I heard? Yeah. On that note, I would love, there's other companies obviously in the SI space. I would love if you could just maybe isolate what is setting you guys apart if you were to crystallize that kind of conversation. I'm sure you have this conversation a lot with physicians.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it all stems from the top. If Todd is going to pursue this goes to all the products we currently have and the ones that are currently in development. If we're going to do anything, we're going to be best in class, and we're not going to be a Me Too product. That's particularly the case. I mean, obviously Minuteman's different from a lot of our competitors in that space. Just it's a way better way to access that space and execute posterior fusion. But with respect to SI, the field has exploded over the past few years, and largely because the SI joint had been overlooked. But what you've seen is a ton of Me Too products. Every product you see out there is a variable pitch screw that aims to decorticate, compress, and fuse the joint by virtue of the threads that engage with the cortical bone. That's how you get the compression of the joint. Where all of those products, that's where all of them are the same, but where they all fall short is there's not enough engagement with the cortical bone of the sacrum. As you get more medial into the sacrum, the bone quality is not very good. So you don't gain added purchase by having a longer screw. You don't gain more compression from having a longer screw, and there's some data out there that shows that. What we did differently was focus on the anatomy, the bone, where we could actually gain the largest foothold and anchor so that we deploy these wings really on brand from a Minuteman standpoint, and then actively compress the implant to pull the joint together. So we're using the strongest bone in the joint to pull it together. And because of that, we were able to get FDA clearance for use of a single implant to fuse the joint. And we're in the process of publishing some biomechanical data and some early outcomes data that really shows this thing is a very streamlined implant. It works really well, and it does what we need it to do.
That's fantastic. Really science-backed. I mean, we're talking major investment in studies, research, development, all.
That's the thing that people on the outside may not know about the organization. This hallway to our right, it's about a 100-foot long hallway full of offices of engineers. Half of the employees of this company are engineers, and those individuals were able to take the idea of the Liberty product, which is a very nuanced implant. It's not like just your run-of-the-mill screw. It's got a lot of parts to it. From concept to FDA approval to implant in 18 months. I mean, it was truly remarkable what the team was able to do, and I can't commend them enough for it.
Jordan, I don't think a lot of people understand that Kansas City is a hotbed for engineering. It's
I don't think I understood that. Yeah.
it's not just Kansas City Chiefs football going on here. But no, seriously.
That's my AFC team. The Cowboys will always be my NFC team.
Oh,
But, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I can't say anything. I'm a Bears
I have
fan,
a big
so
AFC team
whatever.
this year, guys. I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah. So you're saying there's a lot of engineers in Kansas
lot.
City, and it's a
It's a
hotbed.
hotbed, and
And they go into medical
It really
device.
is. And so
Interesting.
it will be no surprise to see that, well, even this upcoming year, 2025, you'll see some announcements that are where your reaction, Jordan, is going to be like, okay, I could have seen this one coming. This feels like, but you also see some moves by Spinal Simplicity where you're like, your reaction might be, how the heck did they get first in that one again? And so there's a lot of activity with our engineers here. Dan, that half of our employees are engineers.
Mm-hmm. Well,
focus on the projects like that. That becomes the new sales paradise when you have that kind of team.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a good salesperson, you want to sell something unique and different that meets a need in the market, and that is exactly what they're doing here.
Yeah, that's great. That leads me that sparks a question in my mind, which is, you guys have served in multiple organizations, large organizations, more nimble startups. You're at or near the top of the sales organization right now. And I know everybody always says, if I ever get into that seat, I would do it this way. Or I would, this is the way I would run that organization. Or these are some things that I've seen that I wouldn't do. And these are some things that I've seen that I would do and want to bring in. As you guys establish or further the sales culture at Spinal Simplicity, what are you hoping to build there in terms of you can put the value proposition to a rep and say, if you come here, this is what you can expect working here.
That we're going to listen. And that stems at the top. Todd Mosley is a salesperson at heart. He was an independent distributor, solely commission based for the majority of his career. So the company has a sales mindset, but in order for sales to be successful, their needs in the field have to be met by executive leadership. And I think mistakes that a lot of companies and individuals make is they become too rigid and austere in whatever their methodology is, and they're not willing to adapt to maybe what some of the best practices are. And that's one thing that I would really, really commend Earl Fender on at Vertiflex. He had a pretty rigid idea of where he thought we needed to be, and he listened to us.
Yeah.
And we were able to pivot. We were able to lean on some really key stakeholders like Ray Baker to validate some of our thought processes. And that top-down, bottom-up collaboration, at least from what I've experienced in my career, is where real success comes from. You just can't be too rigid in your beliefs and not willing to listen.
That's great.
Well
Neil?
said. I agree with what Dan is saying here. Someone looking at our company or even considering joining our company, there's going to be a lot of what you see is what you get here as well, right? Where with us, we kind of play off each other well in this leadership position. Todd he often says you can't steal second with your foot on first, right?
He's a calculated risk,
guy.
Baby.
So if this is,
I'm stealing that right now.
yeah. And so you look at Kansas City, you look at our company here, and there's a lot to it that looks pretty conservative, pretty traditional. But then you have that splash and you hit on the market that's like, no, they're ahead of the game. They're progressive. And so we want to be as progressive enough to keep up with the times, but traditional enough to last the test of it. And so there's going to be a lot of practice and preparation within our group, but there's also going to be some genuine fun in leading the market.
Yeah, it's a fun spot to be in, and it's just an honor to be here, man.
Yeah. Let me ask you, you guys have been really generous with your time, and I know you've got another meeting coming up, but Minuteman, Patriot, Hero, the names of the products, right? And that are, they evoke a certain, thought process, patriotism and things like that. And then I know Spinal Simplicity is very generous in giving to the Navy SEAL Foundation. Well, is there a tie-in with Todd? Did he serve in the military, or what's the ethos there in terms of Spinal Simplicity?
There is a tie to the military in that Todd encourages anybody who wants to serve to do so, and that they will have their job waiting for them when they get back. Bobby Ramirez is a member of our clinical team. He's actually been serving overseas for the past, almost a year, I think it's been.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So he puts our money where our mouth is, but the support and the military-esque brand just comes from the appreciation that, this amazing life that we live in this country does come at a cost. And we need to acknowledge the fact that we have incredible individuals out there who put everything on the line, their lives, their families, to keep us all safe and to have us enjoy the luxuries of freedom and just the ability to have productive discourse as a country. So I'm getting a little off topic on it, but
that's the topic. I like it.
It's special to see him literally put his money where his mouth is with respect to appreciation for those who keep us safe and free.
That's great.
Yeah.
One last question for the strategist. Neil, where are we going? Where are you taking this thing? What's the future? Give us some predictions.
Don't say too much.
6 months out to a year, everybody wants to know what's next? What's the future? Where are things headed in the SI market? That's been so hot the last few years. Give us a prediction. I mean, I picture you in an office with a crystal ball and hands on it or something. Things out.
I'm just.
How did you know?
I know this is
right. Yeah.
I think we're a little too close to some of our launches for me to actually say what I want to say right now. But if you kind of take a look at the society calendar for next year, and even leading up to kind of the big meeting in July at Aspen, you're going to see a couple different huge announcements and products as well from us. So in the beginning parts of the year, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Dan to get us structured. To be able to have these distribution channels and great reps in place. The other part of our company is going to need to be keeping up with the engineers. What is the launch plan? Got a Parker Sneddon. He's an all-star. You're going to hear that name more and more from marketing perspective. Our medical education team led by Mark Farmer, Allie Hodebek, you've probably heard of her a bunch, and Chrissy Ramey does our events for our national labs. These national labs it's insane to think about planning all of that on one product, and then now on 2 products, 3 products, and what you'll see in 25 additional. So there's we got a work cut out for us here on making this putting all the pieces to the puzzle together. But you see his smile right now.
I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to get up out of this interview and go on out there.
I'm going to run through that wall.
We got work to do.
It's a bit of rarefied air, but with Neil kind of setting some of the vision and trusting me with some of the blocking and tackling with the sales organization, I just couldn't be more optimistic on where we're at and where we're going. So
that's fantastic. We'll have to have you guys back after some of these things start to roll out after ASPMN here. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you for being on today. Reminder for those who don't know, we're not just a podcast. We are a medical device recruiting firm, and we fill positions nationally. There's not one state I know of where we have not made placements. Visit ChaseMedSearch.com to find our latest position listings. You can also find me, Jordan Chase, on LinkedIn, and I post up-to-date position listings there. I'm capped at 30,000 LinkedIn connections, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, but unfortunately I can't accept your invitation if you send me one. Finally, if you've got feedback on our podcast, please email it to me at jordan@chasemedsearch.com. And if you like what you hear, please leave us a glowing 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It does help grow the show.